Before touching the clippers, I always picture where the fade is going to sit on the head. For example, if I'm doing a drop fade with no hooks, I identify where the hooks start and ensure that's where I'll begin my baseline. So from this corner here is where the hooks begin. If I want my fade to drop, I will intentionally lower my baseline to create that shape. So essentially my baseline is gonna go along here, like this. I begin with the number 3 guard and take it up to where I want my top dark foundation to be. This sets the highest point of the fade while also keeping the sides clean when I'm working on the fade. Removing bulk first makes it easier to visualize the fade and keep my workspace clean and neat. You may ask why the number 3 guard? Well, this ensures that the top remains dark and heavy, which will give me more control later when I'm blending. Again, guys, if my baseline is gonna begin from this corner and go along the head shape right here and then drop down, when I'm removing bulk with the number 3 guard and going up, I'm gonna follow that same shape even though my baseline is not here yet. So here I have the 3 guard with the lever closed. And now when I'm going up, as I'm moving up, I'm staying on the scalp. As I hit the top, I'm going to be flicking out to keep that weight up there. And I'm always going against the grain when I'm doing this. If the hair by any chance is traveling in a different direction, like let's say it's going this way, I'm going to want to tilt the clipper and match that grow out pattern and go like that. So again, guys, I'm going on the scalp here. As I'm moving up, I get away from the scalp. This is flicking, right? So already without having my baseline, like I mentioned to you guys, as I'm taking down the bulk, I'm also kind of creating a bulk line in the same shape that I'm gonna be creating my baseline. So as you can see, guys, this bulk line here that I left, that's gonna be the same shape when I go and create my baseline. Before I move on to the next fading steps, I like to section the hair from the crown or where the cowlick is, and I like to go straight to a natural parting in the front on the side that I'm working on. And what I'm gonna be doing here is just blending everything in with clipper over comb. Before setting the baseline, I use my thinning shears over comb to blend in any bulk left behind by the number 3 guard. This step is key in creating a smoother transition to create a better contrast or fade. What I mean by contrast is from it going from light to dark. My thinning shears are gonna help me to lighten up darker areas without removing too much hair, allowing me to soften the fade and build a more better transition. By softening up the fade early on, I can create a better overall foundation for the guidelines that will follow underneath. For a deeper dive into how I use my thinning shears over comb effectively, check out the video in the hidden gems section. With my thinning shears over comb, it can be very helpful, especially when people have these kind of indentations in their head, these darker areas where they're pretty much caused by these kind of like holes on the head. With my thinning shears over comb, I can go underneath, pick up the hair under, and just lighten up these areas a bit. So I have a lighter area here from his bone, and I'm just trying to build up that, trying to transition this a little better. Once the bulk is removed and the fade is softened up a bit, I'm going to create my base guideline. This first guideline is also going to define the overall shape of the fade. A tip for drop fades is that, again, I'm going to lower the baseline towards the back of the head to create that drop effect. And again, every guideline above this will follow the same shape. So with my clipper with the zero closed, with no guard, I'm going to remove all the bulk. And I'm already envisioning my line here. And to create a softer line, I'm almost flicking a little bit to not create a harsh line. Now I'm going to use the 1.5 guard with the lever closed. And I'm going to take this guideline up to the point where I want that dark foundation of my fade to start. This will help me define that transition between the lighter area below and the darker weight at the top. However, it's important to follow the same shape as the baseline to maintain that balance and flow of the fade. Keep everything consistent. And with the 1.5, again, I'm pretty much gonna rub on the scalp, and where I want to set up that guideline or where I want it to stop, I'm just gonna flick out. So notice guys, the shape of that guideline I just created is in the same shape as my baseline. And one thing you want to make sure to keep a consistent fade and make your fade just look overall cleaner is to maintain your area clean. Use a brush all the hairs down. At times there could be hair stuck on the side and you might think it's a darker area, but in reality it's just hair clumped up that you haven't brushed off. Once I've set the line with the 1.5 closed, I open the lever without switching guards and flick this line, or pretty much soften it by flicking this, the 1.5 with the lever closed, into that number 3. And I'm making sure that when I'm doing that, I'm just flicking as I touch the line. I'm not gonna go any higher. Once I hit that line, I'm flicking out. This will soften that transition and create a smoother blend. And in areas like this, like right here, I like using my corners just to kind of lighten up those areas. And now anything under that's not being cut by the 1.5 with the lever open, I'll just slightly close a little bit. And then get it with that. So I'll lever play and just remove any darkness underneath. So in other words, I'm kind of also fading downward here. So after I've done the 1.5 with the lever open and flicked it into the number 3 guard, skipping the number 2 guard, I'm going to refine my dark area using my thinning shears over comb, just to lighten any darker areas and overall just create a more softer foundation. So I'm really paying attention to areas like here where I'm taking a little bit of extra time to really lighten up, because again, because of his indentation, it can appear a little darker. I'm just going to go in here and remove some of that darkness away with my thinning shears. And if you haven't seen the thinning shear video, I like to use a tapered comb because it allows me to use the smaller part of the comb to get into little areas to detail the fade better. So now once my dark foundation is set, to start working on the lower part of the fade, I'm going to use the 0.5 guard or the half guard with the lever closed. I'm going to create the guideline in the same shape again as the baseline, staying consistent with the overall fade structure. I'm not putting any pressure. I'm simply just gliding my guard and my clipper over his skin. I'm not pushing. I'm not like flicking too aggressively. I'm simply just going up and down like this. And again, where I want to create that line, eventually my clipper comes off and I'll just flick lightly out. And one thing I did forget to mention is that with my half guard, I'll go up half the distance that I went up with my 1.5 guard. And the distance will vary depending on how spread out I want my fade or how compressed I want it. You want to remind yourself to stay organized and keep everything neat, again, as this will help you achieve a cleaner transition. After setting this guideline with the lever closed, I'm going to open the lever without switching guards, and this is going to allow me to blend this in and soften up this line. I'm going to flick the 0.5 guard into that 1.5 area. I'm not necessarily flicking up to it, but I'm ensuring by just kind of gliding over the line that I'm keeping a soft touch on it so I don't create any harsher lines. Again, I'm focusing on a nice gentle like gliding motion, and I'll flick slightly a bit as I'm going up. And this is just to avoid creating any hard lines, making it easier to blend into the existing overall fade. In some cases, if the lever open is not blending that line in very well, little by little, I'm going to close the lever and test to see if it's gonna get the line and blend into it. If it's not, I'm gonna go again just a little, lightly close the lever again until it starts blending it. But I'm making sure that I'm not going too high. I'm only flicking on that line. If I am gonna go higher, I'm gonna open it. Another tip, if the lever open is not getting rid of that line and you're just gliding on that line, applying a little bit of pressure and staying on the line can also potentially get rid of the line. So in some areas like the back and the sides, the hair typically is a bit more coarse. Whereas some areas in the front, like your corners, which I like to typically keep dark, whereas areas like here in the front and the corners can be a bit more thin. And using, for example, if you're gonna use like a number 2 here and then use a number 2 here, if this area is thinner and this area is more thicker, it can look shorter here and more thicker and darker over here. So keep that in mind when you're analyzing someone's hair texture. All right, so now before blending in the baseline, I'm gonna use my trimmer that's not too sharp to clean up everything underneath the baseline. However, when I'm doing this, I'm gonna make sure that I don't directly touch my baseline. I'll trim everything just below it so it could be easier when I'm going in and cleaning up with my shaver. And here I'll make sure I pay attention to details like hair behind the ear. Now I'm gonna use my shaver to blend in everything underneath that area where I use my trimmer. So I'm making sure I'm not going up too high and creating a sharp line. Similar to your trimmers and clippers, with your shaver, you can also kind of flick as you go up higher. You can kind of flick as you go up and come out like this to not create a sharp bald line. And guys, I'm not even putting pressure into the skin. Like, I'm not even pressing down on it. I'm literally just gliding it on the skin. And I'm flicking as I, head towards the baseline. I'm flicking out to avoid creating any harsh lines. And you always want to make sure that in any direction that the hair is growing, to bald it out, with your shaver, go against the grain as well. You'll get more of a closer shave. So now guys, I'm gonna use 0 or no guard with the lever closed to blend in that baseline. The key here is to flick on the line rather than applying too much pressure. So I'm almost just gliding over it, not applying too much pressure, not pushing too far into the scalp. I'm simply just gliding my clipper over it. This will avoid cutting into the fade and taking it higher than intended. So with my 0, I'm simply just gliding over that line. As I'm moving up, I'm opening the lever. If it's not blending, then with the lever open, just apply a little bit of more pressure. If it's still not blending, gradually close the lever little by little until it starts blending. Again guys, always flick on the line rather than pushing into it to avoid cutting too much and having to take the fade higher. So notice I'll open the lever as I'm moving up. So from the side here, you can kind of see I just have this part of the blade on the skin, and I'm kind of just gliding like that. The top part of the whole blade is just a bit away from the scalp. If I want to cut more, I'll angle it more in like this, and I'll flick like that, and I'll rub it against the skin, and I'll apply a little more pressure. If I want to remove a little more hair, or I'm maybe working in areas above, like right here, just a bit above the baseline, I'll have it like this on the skin, and I'm just gliding like this. And this won't cut too close. It'll kind of just remove less hair. So like right here, I'm working on the bottom part, and notice how notice the angle at which I'm pointing my clipper, right? Now as I'm moving up, and I don't want to cut too much hair off, I'll start angling the top part of the blade out a little more. I'll open it, and eventually I have it even angled out way more. So now that the fade is pretty much almost complete, I'm gonna take the time to detail the haircut further using my phone. This step is crucial for a perfect showcase.